Superman is the very kind and strong ideal hero of all. But there are places in the universe where he is the opposite of all the good things about Superman in this planet. Here are the top 10 evil version of Superman. Number 10. Bizarro from Bizarro World or Heat Tray. Bizarro is a doppelganger of Superman. Due to a somewhat disjointed continuity, several versions of Bizarro have appeared in DC Comics, all of them in versions of Superman with gray or chalk-white skin, a twisted sense of logic which typically manifests as a superficial opposite of anything Superman would do or say. Due to his imperfections, Bizarro is frequently a foe of Superman, but sometimes finds himself in the role of hero. The original Bizarro was created when Superman was exposed to a duplicate ray. In accordance with the science fiction concepts of Superman stories of the era, Bizarro relocated to the Bizarro World, a cubical planet called Heat Tray which operated under Bizarro logic. It was a crime to do anything good or right, and which Bizarro populated with inverted versions of Superman's supporting cast and other DC heroes. Number 9. Zombie Superman. According to the zombie Mr. Fantastic, the zombie outbreak started when an ungodly strong zombified superhero from another dimension, who had targeted many other dimensions previously, punched his way through reality until he landed on Earth 2149, and then proceeded to infect the Avengers, who in turn infected all other superheroes until they devoured almost all inhabitants of the Earth. In Mark Millar's original script, such zombie superhero would have been none other than Superman, one of the most famous superheroes from Marvel's rival company DC Comics and from all fiction overall. Superman's inclusion would have been an Easter egg to the friendly rivalry between Marvel and DC throughout the years. In order to avoid any copyright infringement with DC, Marvel intended to not specifically identify Superman by name in the story nor include his S-Shield chest logo, so in this way, only fans and readers would be able to realize who the zombie superhero actually was. Number 8. Brutal from Earth 2. On an alternate world called Earth 2, Darkseid created a duplicate of his Kryptonian rival and conditioned him into a soldier called Brutal. Tasked with slaying Earth 2's mightiest warriors, Brutal and Darkseid's general, Steppenwolf, laid waste to humanity, preparing to terraform it into new apocalypse. After Steppenwolf claimed the world in his own name instead of his master's, Brutal executed him, reaffirming his devotion to Darkseid. Coming to the realization that staying on Earth was a lost cause, many people attempted to flee in a vessel called the Space Ark. Sadly, Brutal destroyed the ship in mid-flight, killing all its passengers. To stop the world from being burned to ashes, the Superman of Earth 2, Valzad, faced Brutal in an epic showdown. Since Brutal was brainwashed to believe he was the one true Superman, he saw Val as a pretender and assured him that his victory was inevitable. But as the fight progressed, Brutal became noticeably weaker and his skin began to deteriorate, proving he was an inferior clone. Refusing to believe that he is nothing more than Darkseid's pawn, Lois Lane shattered Brutal's withering body, crumbling it to dust. Number 7. Overman, the Multiversity Masterman. The Multiversity Masterman takes place in a world where Kal-El's Kryptonian ship crash-landed in Germany in 1938, where it was retrieved by the Nazi Party. When Adolf Hitler learned this, the Führer ordered his men to raise Kal-El as an Aryan super soldier called Overman. With his godlike power, the super Nazi conquered the world by the age of 17. Although Overman adamantly believed in his cause, he became utterly disillusioned when he learned Hitler's men had exterminated millions of people in concentrated camps. To make amends, a guilt-ridden Overman spent the next 60 years transforming the world into a paradise. However, a superhero powered by the patriotism of Americans called Uncle Sam refused to bend the knee to Overman since his global utopia was built on lies and bloodshed. In the end, one of Uncle Sam's teammates managed to work his way onto the Justice League's lunar base and blew it up, causing it to crash to Earth and destroy Metropolis. However, it's theorized in the final pages that Overman voluntarily allowed the satellite to destroy the city to punish himself for playing a part in the Nazi regime. Number 6. Superman of Apocalypse. Superman, Darkseid. As we all know, Jor-El placed Kal-El in a pod before Krypton exploded and sent it in the direction of Earth. But in the Elseworld three-parter, the ship was intercepted by Darkseid before it reached Earth and Superman was raised on the hellish world of Apocalypse. Darkseid believed the Kryptonian's power could be used to eliminate his nemesis, Highfather, and so, raised Superman to obey him unequivocally. When Darkseid believed Superman's power had peaked, he supplied him with a bomb and had him detonate it on Highfather's world, New Genesis. Before the explosive detonated, Highfather pointed out to Superman that he had been brainwashed by the forces of Apocalypse since birth. He then teleported Superman to Earth to show him the life he would have had if Darkseid didn't seize his ship when he was an infant. After seeing how compassionate humans are, Superman develops a conscience and realizes he had been deceived by his master his whole life. Teaming up with the new gods that survived New Genesis's destruction, Superman battles Darkseid and defeats him. He then becomes the new ruler of Apocalypse and begins reseeding New Genesis, hoping to return the world to its former glory. Number 5. Parallax Superman. When Superman learns that several children in Metropolis have gone missing, he investigates the locations they were last seen. Using his super sight, he notices a yellow glow concentrated around an abandoned school. When he explores the building, Superman discovers the children have been kidnapped by Parallax, the creator of fear. Parallax attempts to possess Superman's body but is unable to since the superhero's willpower is too great. After Parallax tortures the kidnapped children, Superman agrees to let the cosmic parasite take over his body if he frees the children. Parallax agrees and, sure enough, Superman allows the embodiment of fear to possess him. Before Parallax has a chance to use Superman's body to commit atrocities, Sinestro appears and attacks him. Since Sinestro has mastered fear better than anyone in the universe, he is able to hold his own against his former master. After Sinestro has Parallax subdued, Superman grabs Sinestro's power ring which feeds on fear and entices the godlike entity to possess him again. When Parallax attempts to take over Superman's body, the Man of Steel traps him in the power ring, defeating him at least for the time being. Number 4. Cyborg Superman, Reign of the Supermen storyline. After Superman was beaten to death by Doomsday, a cyborg called the Man of Tomorrow appeared in Metropolis, insisting he was Superman reborn. The public were dubious of his identity since he was part machine, but he claimed his cybernetics were necessary to repair the damage he sustained from Doomsday. At first, this Superman seemed like the real deal since he stopped criminals and teamed up with other superheroes. Eventually, he showed his true colors when he orchestrated the destruction of Green Lantern's home, Coast City. It turns out this Superman was a former astronaut for LexCorp, Hank Henshaw. Several months ago, his spaceship was exposed to a solar flare, causing his crew to sustain a lethal dose of radiation. When Hank learned Superman hurled the Eradicator into the sun moments before the flare hit, he became convinced the superhero was responsible for his crew's demise. Although this wasn't true, Hank was too consumed by rage to believe otherwise. Before he succumbed to death, Hank transferred his consciousness into the LexCorp mainframe, giving him the ability to reconstitute his body in robotic form. When Superman was killed by Doomsday, Hank pretended to be the beloved superhero to tarnish his reputation beyond repair. Number 3. Dark Multiverse Superman. The Dark Multiverse is the inverted side of the multiverse, populated by twisted versions of DC's most beloved superheroes. In one of these realities, there exists a Superman who, at first, seems relatively the same as the superhero of Prime Earth. One day, this incarnation of Superman snapped, killing millions, including his family, friends, superheroes, and teammates. Bizarrely, no one knows the root cause of Kal-El turning against humanity. The Batman of this world originally theorized that Superman turned evil due to being exposed to a new form of kryptonite or by being brainwashed by Darkseid or Mr. Mind. Naturally, Batman believed he could revert his ally and friend to normal if he reminded him of who he once was. But when the deranged Kryptonian killed his wife and cut Batman's arm off, That's when the Dark Knight realized he had to take his former friend down. Left with no choice, the Caped Crusader injected himself with Doomsday cells, transforming himself into a beast called the Devastator. After pummeling Superman to a pulp, Devastator poisoned him with kryptonite and impaled him with his spikes, finally putting an end to Superman's tyranny. Number 2. Ultraman. Earth 3 is a universe where the concept of good and evil doesn't exist. Instead, everything is perceived as either strong or weak. In this reality, the world is run by a malevolent version of the Justice League called the Crime Syndicate. The team has an evil version of Superman called Ultraman. The Maniac of Steel's powers are the same as Superman, but his strengths and weaknesses are reversed. Not only is he immune to magic, kryptonite makes Ultraman stronger. After eating or snorting the green metal, the last tyrant of Krypton will be borderline invincible for several hours. Although Superman's power is derived from being exposed to a yellow sun, Ultraman can only sustain his strength in darkness. As a result, he keeps shifting the moon to form an eclipse to ensure he is always at full strength. When the Crime Syndicate imprisoned the Justice League in the storyline, Forever Evil, the supervillains of Earth, led by Lex Luthor, took it upon themselves to defeat Ultraman's team. After Sinestro and Black Adam exposed Ultraman to sunlight, he was left vulnerable enough for Luthor to batter him into submission. Number 1. High Counselor Superman. Considering there have been dozens of evil Supermen over the last 60+ years, it's ironic the most infamous version originated, not in a comic, but in a video game. In Injustice, Gods Among Us, Superman loses his mind after the Joker manipulates him to destroy Metropolis and kills his pregnant wife, Lois Lane. Believing this tragedy could have been avoided if he was less lenient on crime, Superman vows to use lethal force on criminals from now on. When his teammates tell him he has become the very evil he swore to fight against, Superman turned against friends. Rebranding himself as the High Counselor, the former superhero begins ruling the world with an iron fist. Some of the Leaguers embraced Superman's new vision while others allied with him because they knew they couldn't stop him. An insurgency, led by Batman, openly opposes Superman's regime and do everything they can to stop his tyranny, so they can return the world to normal. In many ways, this is the most terrifying incarnation of Superman since it proves that the world's most beloved superhero can turn on humanity in an instant if he reaches his breaking point.